Hi, I am Michelle van Ono Green Thompson, the editor of Those Who Travel Meet Themselves. Join us on this journey as we talk to different brown South Africans who've used travel to impact their lives. Welcome to Those Who Travel Meet Themselves. Today on the couch we have Nsako Makagera.
What's my name? My name White.
Oh, why am I saying your name White, yo? Hi, don't hate me like that. I'm a South African. Okay, yeah, let me try and say it like Nsako Makagera.
What A would I get in?
Wait, am I putting an A?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, love. Crap, man. I'm saying Mpumalanga.
Yes, you're saying
With your
Mpumalanga
surname.
name.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I mean,
Okay, you say your name and
my
surname.
name is Nsako Makabela.
Nkabela.
There is no Mrs. Funny Bad, but there is no Makabela.
I just keep calling this one man, right?
Yes.
This is Trumps. Very. Okay. So, Nsako. Did I pronounce that correctly now?
Go on.
Thank you so much for joining us on the couch. You're one of the contributors to Those Who Travel Meet Themselves, and I loved your story. I thought it was absolutely amazing. You took us on a journey, and there were so many different aspects of your journey that were in that story.
Right.
And I'd just like you to share with everyone who you are, what drives you, what are you passionate about, as we journey back through your story to who you are.
My name is Nsako Makabela. First and foremost, I think my way of looking at the world is through activism and through social justice. I believe deeply in social justice, and that's what drives me, and that's what is the guiding principle behind a lot of the things that I do. But also as a person, the one thing that that is you, what would it be? And I must say, I'm a maker. So I really like the idea of like the empty white page. Lots of people are like, starting a business. I'm like, yes, that's you start. So whether it's like making actual things, whether you're crafting, making with your hands, conceptually creating institutions, creating businesses, creating ideas. I'm very so I'm not like I'm creative in that like I dress funny. I mean I'm creative in that I make things.
You said to me, don't dress funny. I love the outfit, by the way.
Yes, I'm a creative. So no, do you make anything? No, you cannot be creative if you didn't create. Hello.
I can attest to you being an absolute creator. There's so many different things that you have done. For me, one of the most memorable ones have been your story around the spelling bee, being dyslexic and making words so accessible for all children.
Yeah.
I think, in a country where our reading rate is so low, that work that you've done in part of being a maker, a creator, getting kids to actually wake up to words and the power behind them.
So for me, the process of under-educating black children is a crime, and has been for the past, since Farabut days. That agenda and that process has gone on unabated. Change governments, change countries, change what you call it, whatever. But the process, the agenda, and the understanding that when you undereducate a population, the majority of your population, you are in the best position to politically, economically, socially be in a controlling position. So that people are never able to do for themselves because they're constantly underprepared for what life means or what life needs for them. So for me, when I do the spelling bee, it's very much a political thing. It is a social thing. It is a human thing. It is about understanding that when a child is unable to read and they need to for school, they feel dumb. They feel poorly about themselves. They feel they feel like they're not enough. And forcing children on a daily basis to have that feeling is criminal. It's tantamount to abuse. It's emotional. It's psychological abuse. It's it's actually like an abuse that then has a ripple effect over generations.
Absolutely.
Where that child becomes, as we have, a matriculant who, despite how you might play the look at the pass rate, how do you have an increasing pass rate and a decreasing number for what it means to pass? That's math.
Yeah.
But that's political math.
Mm-hmm.
But in social terms, it means that we get matriculants out of the school system, so they can't go back because they've met the criteria for getting out.
Yeah.
But they don't have enough to move forward.
Yeah.
So that they're 25, 35, 45, they've got families, they become grandparents, and those families are stuck in that same level of poverty.
Same cycle.
And it starts with not teaching them proper reading, not teaching them proper math. So I'm like, the agenda remains, the apartheid agenda, the agenda to undereducate the black person. And the truth is that the color of money is green, no matter who is in power. And those in power all are like, as long as we're about that. So often we say, well, this is our government. And they say, no, power is power. Control is control. And if people have figured out that using education is the most effective ways to control, they'll continue to do so.
Absolutely.
So for me, doing the spelling bee was also just an act of like rebellion and saying, I always say the most radical thing I do is teach black children to read.
Yeah. Most radical thing you do is teach black children to read. Yeah.
Imagine when like literacy has to become a political tool.
Yeah.
And we have to be, I think as a new generation of young black professionals and young black parents have to actually understand that this thing at the beginning of the year where they say children haven't been placed. The one thing in that debate that nobody has is the reason parents are fighting so much is because they're trying to force you to put children where they want you to put them.
Yeah.
And where they majority want to put them based on where they live continues to mean that black children cannot move beyond to access opportunity.
Yeah.
They say you must be where we put you. If you would say, but I'd rather go to part-time boys, I'd rather go to Jeppy girls, they say, well, you don't live near that. So it's kind of like the Bantustan system, but with education, and you're going, wait, but we're not passionate enough to fight for it.
Yeah. So they're not even allowed to travel from their immediate space.
Yeah.
Because essentially, again, it's that notion of interaction with space. How are we interacting with space? It's 25 years after apartheid. As a black person, what is your interaction with space and movement and recreating yourself?
Exactly.
How do you express yourself in different areas? Do you have the capacity to do that? Or are you kept within your financial realm and capacity that your family has been kept at previously?
It's scary. Like before I started the spelling bee, I spent quite a lot of time working in Soweto with students there. Now I grew up in Soweto, so I'm not like sometimes as African people, when you see people who come correct, as it were, you think they're removed from where you are. So it's like, no, those must be suburb kids, or those must be... But actually, many of us not born free. I definitely was not born free.
Yeah.
And actually, on my birth certificate under nationality, it literally says none.
Nationality?
None. Like, that's how, not a factor we were to the system, right? So people still will look at you and say, well, you must be from privilege. No, that's not true. But the point I was making is the kids who grew up in Soweto today, I had asked some of them to meet me at Rosebank, which is like a 20, 30-minute drive from Soweto to Rosebank. And they were like, we've never been this far in the city. Like, apart from Joburg city center, we've never been beyond that.
Yeah.
And that shook me. Like, I took it for granted that, okay, you're in Soweto, you're in Johannesburg, you're in the center of Africa, you're in, like, the rest of Africa looks to South Africa to lead the way. That's how we think about ourselves. You are in the economic hub of the country. You live in the most densely populated area with the most potential coming out of people. And Soweto is like, it is a treasure trove.
Yeah, what, 3 million people?
So when you think about kids who are 18 years old and have never been beyond downtown Jozi, that's like So when you're talking about access to spaces, access to information, to knowledge, to ideas, how do people do that if they never even go beyond like just sticking a toe outside?
Yeah.
You know? So even when we're talking about travel in South Africa, we're still really just talking about getting people to say, can you go to Pretoria?
Yes.
Do you
You live in Soweto, have you been to Katlehong? You know,
do you know what's
because that's also the other thing that I found. I was shocked, you know, I came here for varsity and I was, you know, and wanting to navigate.
Yeah.
I'd been to Soweto before, so I said I needed to go to Soweto for something. I can't remember what. And I said to this friend of mine, "Are you gonna come with me? Which taxi should we take?" And she said, "I don't know which taxis to take. I've never been to Soweto." And I was blown. I said, "That's crazy. You've lived in Johannesburg." She was from Spruit View. And I said, "You've been living here. What do you mean you've never?" No.
But do you see how the process and the agenda of separate development continues?
Yes.
If apartheid was about segregation,
yes.
was about, if like, I know when my mom was little, they had relatives in Springs.
Yeah.
From Soweto to go and visit in Springs, they needed actual permit and documentation to allow them to. Now you don't need the documentation, but people just don't.
Yeah.
Like it's not even like don't see the world, don't see the country. Just going from like Alexandra to Tembisa, which is literally 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
People don't do that.
No, they don't.
So the segregationist politics or policies and process have been so deeply enshrined that without the necessary infrastructure to enforce it, it continues to enforce itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I was myself. I had to go to Tembisa for something for the first time. I was doing something for the spelling bee, which actually has allowed me to see South Africa like deeply and in a way I never had before. So I'm like, okay, I put this thing on my GPS, Tembisa, and it says to me 15 minutes, and I'm like, no, where?
Must be somewhere else.
Tembisa's far, man. This GPS is going to lose me. And I'm driving. I get off the off ramp. 5 minutes later, I'm like, there's an entire township there. I'm like, how did I not know that this entire township exists here?
So you were saying that the spelling bee has been able to take you across the country. What has been the most? What's the one area that has stuck with you through that where it really touched you or impressed itself upon you?
I think because of the work we do with the spelling bee, sometimes we don't go to the picturesque spaces or the nice towns on the book, right? So you go to that town where you drive 8 hours, you get there and you're like, so this is where we're getting to.
Sounds like Maritzburg.
Why are you here? It's so dumb.
Yeah.
Like when we go to like a place like Kuruman, right?
Yes.
And like you drive and then the landscape just gets brown and dry and boring. And then these weird things start to happen where you get these like shack communities that are in the middle of the hottest landscape with no trees, and then you imagine a corrugated iron structure in there, and I'm like, how are people living in there? Like it's literally cat on a hot tin roof, right?
Yes.
So you're driving and then you finally arrive and someone says, we've arrived, and you're like, where?
Have we arrived?
Why? But what's really nice is that in the middle of all of that, you then get to meet people, right? And when you see people who live in a place where I literally have to think to myself, if this is where I was starting out, it would take me a while to make it in life. Like, it is far from anything that says to you, this is what the world can offer you, this is what there is out there. So for a child or a person to grow up in there and imagine themselves and be able to succeed, those people who we find here hustling in Joburg and they say to you, I'm from Kuruma, and then you think, jeez, you must like, your ability to imagine or to see different must be so vast. Yeah. Because literally you are from God's belly button, like...
I love it. From God's belly button.
Just like, why? But also, like, you then get people who in say in the spelling bee, where you get kids from there who have schools where literally in the school there was 2 chairs and then each of the chairs didn't have legs on the side, right? So they kind of put the chairs on each other to make like a bit of a sofa chair. And then the kids kind of lean on each other all day and they balance. And you think, oh man, this is your classroom. So the other thing is that you then get to see South Africa for real.
Yeah.
So there's South Africa urban, there's South Africa picturesque, and then there's where the majority of people live. And when you place yourself there, it either makes you want to do more or to kill people. Nothing in between. Sometimes you on a day you oscillate from being like, I swear I'm gonna kill somebody who makes this a reality, or you say, actually we have to change this. So in the morning you wake up, you're like, yes. By afternoon you're like,
I don't know anymore.
And at night you're like, no, but we must.
Yeah.
But you then meet people who are creating reading groups or library clubs, or a parent who themselves can't read but gathers all the kids and gets a graduate to come in and train them. And then you then see the spirit of people, so that yes, you live in the middle of nowhere, but people are people, and that spirit for more.
Yes, for wanting more, for creating a better future for their children.
Yeah, and that like there is a world out there. So yes, we live here in this spot that horizon to horizon there's nothing, but there's a spot beyond that horizon.
Yeah.
So I'm always amazed by people's ability to imagine themselves beyond that horizon.
Yes.
And I think that then makes me angry sometimes at a kid who grows up in Soweto and says, I've never been beyond here. Because you say, do you know that there are kids who are from literally nowhere, who are imagining themselves and actually braving it to come here? So when you see people from Kokaikai, I'm born and bred in Joburg, so I've got this kind of sense that this is the world. But often then when I meet someone who says, I'm from Jane First, you're like, oh dog, you got here.
Yeah.
Right? Someone who's like, I'm from Ofinbaba, just off, where you're just like, wow. How?
Let me tell you, as a rural child myself, I think when we watch TV, we always think, Joburg is where everything happens. If I can just get to Joburg, my life, I can direct the direction of my life. So that's why it's always shocking as a rural child when you find people who have been in Joburg, lived in Joburg, and then say, I've never gone this far. I mean, when I arrived in Joburg, I was like, ooh, Jesus, I even thought the 7-Eleven was a club. I got so excited. I was like, we're going to the 7-Eleven. Yes, because we don't have 7-Elevens in Newcastle. There's never been a 7-Eleven in Newcastle. There's like, Uncle Dan's puzzle shop type situation. And
or like those small towns where like you can only qualify it as a town because there's a Checkers and the KFC.
Yes.
And you go, okay, you are a town.
I hate the Checkers and KFC scenario, because even when you go beyond, like you go to Eswatini, they KFC, ShopRite. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be stores like that, but I don't know. I feel like it just takes away from
what there's locally there.
Yes.
Like when you go to Shai Shai in Mozambique, and like there's the Checkers there, but it's bad, man. It's bad. People go there to buy the bulk rice and blah blah blah. But actually, when we go there, where it's best to buy is to wait for the fisher guys to come back from the sea, and they've got fresh prawns and they've got fish, and you go to the market and they've got bread right there that they baked. That for me, and I wish that Joburg had a bit more of that, where you can engage with the people that make the food, that grow it, that catch it, and so like that connectedness with the place that you're at. Yeah. But for me also, the ShopRite, especially when they're in Nigeria and they're all over Africa, it says the South African white is a settler, a conqueror. For real, that's how they think of themselves. And so one of the things that I've been missing from democratic South Africa is, where is the new ShopRite that we've created? Like we've made money. People can speak to us on behalf of us to Trump. A guy ShopRite, a guy Spar, a guy Pick and Pay, a guy St. Stithians. that ability to create and then move what we create. So every time I see a Nando's and like it's in London, I'm like, yes, this shows that you can be in South Africa, but if we create institutions and businesses, they can be those businesses that can be global.
Yes.
You know?
Transcend borders.
Yeah, but I'm like, okay, 25 years in, I'm like, guys, like, you've had the money, you can speak to Trump, but where's the Trump?
I can speak to Trump, the Trump point.
Never get over.
Okay, so almost close to last and final question. You, in the book, chat about how you traveled to Mozambique to find the origins of your maternal grandmother, and you say something very profound. You say, what I learned from the women in my family is that you can recreate yourself no matter where you go. And what did that journey mean for you, and how do you continue to recreate yourself?
Right. For me, that journey was really actually rooted me, not in South Africa, but in a broader identity. So before you grow up, you're like, yes, I'm a South African, and that's the ID you hold. But when you begin to, and I think a lot of South Africans have this story, begin to really tell the story of a generation or two back, you then realize that these are not your roots. Your roots are far broader, wider, whether it's Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique in our case. And then for me, the thing that it then created was the sense that even something like xenophobia is, how can I?
Yeah.
Right? How can I be like, hey, these Mozambicans? And I'm like, yeah, that was my grand back in the day. Totally, that was my grand. She came back, she came here and she set up shop and she was running a coffee car and she was, you know. So I think the ability to travel for me is there's like so much in being able to broaden your life, your sense of who you are or where you belong, so that now when I meet someone from, I don't know, Guinea-Bissau, I have a sense to say we're travelers, we are broad, and the African identity, the Southern African identity, is singularly the most vast of all the African identities, which means that it's really strange for us to be stuck on the sense of our bordering and who we are. And I think if there was anything that was needed in terms of recreation, was to recreate the South African identity in truth, and not based on nationalist politics, which are very much nationalist party politics, right? So it's weird how much of that poison we've taken in and have made part of our identities. But that politics of borders is not the politics or the reality of our lives, where people's grandfathers were the miners coming from Malawi, Tanzania, etc., etc. So I think what recreation is needed is really to recreate the South African identity really along a borderless sense of who we are, because we are genetically, we are a borderless people, and we need to think of ourselves like that.
So what would be the one way we could start towards that direction?
my way, and it's a very feminist way. But I think that as women, as a woman,
is this the one where we take a bus and we leave?
Well, no.
And we have a number plate that says not coming back.
Hashtag goodbye forever. No, I think that when love, for instance, has been one of those ways that really has forced people to cross boundaries. When suddenly Mkhwenyana comes in speaking Lingala, I'm like, hey, that's the way it should be, right? I think as South African women, we've been pioneering this and should continue, but we should give our wombs to anyone else but our own. Make children who are like a box of smarties from everywhere in the world. And in 2 generations, people should come to South Africa and you should not say that is a South African. In fact, that is a South African statement should come from, these kids look so kind of mixed. That is a South African, yes. Then I would say that, you know, if I had to send a message to South African women, I would say, guys, let's share with everyone else.
Except our own. Oh my God!
statement.
Okay, I'm gonna put it out there to the world and say, what do you guys think of this?
It was xenophobia for sure. If your grandchildren were from like Ghana, Nigeria, Equatorial
China.
Guinea, China, and like Cameroon, you're like, who are you gonna hate on?
Yeah. Who are you gonna hate on? Well,
it's my thing.
I hear you. I hear you. If you want to hear more of Mzaka's story, you can get it in the second edition of Those Who Travel Meet Themselves. And I think we even have a postcard for you, actually. So follow us at Those Who Travel Meet Themselves. DM us to get a copy of the book. And Mzaka, what are your handles so that if people want to follow you and hear more of your ideas around ways in which we can recreate ourselves? Are there any particular social media handles? Instagram?
I mean, all my stuff is private. Like, no.
What about the spelling bee one?
Well, yes, on Facebook we're the Mzansi Spelling Bee. You
Yes.
can find us there. Otherwise, you can just be a creepy voyeur on Facebook and find me as I am.
Well, that's Mzaka, and I'm hoping that we're going to get more stories from you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.